Imagine this. You walk into a crowded room filled with strangers. The music is loud, conversations overlap, and people seem to be effortlessly mingling. Some individuals move from group to group, their energy growing with each interaction, while others linger on the sidelines, observing, waiting for the right moment to speak, or perhaps hoping they won't have to at all. Now, picture yourself in this scenario. Are you the one confidently introducing yourself to new people, enjoying the buzz of a social interaction? Or do you feel an immediate urge to retreat, scanning the room for a quiet corner, or pulling out your phone to avoid small talk? Maybe you are somewhere in between, comfortable in social situations, but also needing time alone to recharge. Most of us have identified with one of these tendencies for most of our lives. We label ourselves as introverts or extroverts, assuming that we are either one or the other. But what if I told you that's not entirely true? What if the way you have seen yourself all these years is actually incomplete? That the categories you have placed yourself into, introvert or extrovert, are not as rigid as you might think. Here's the shocking truth. No one is 100% introvert or 100% extrovert. And if you have ever felt like you don't fully belong to either category, you are not alone. You may, in fact, be something in between. This revelation comes from one of the most influential figures in psychology, Carl Jung. In the early 20th century, Jung introduced a theory that would change how we understand personality forever. He argued that introversion and extraversion are not just about being social or shy, but about how we direct our mental energy. And even more surprisingly, he believed that most people don't fit neatly into just one category. So, if you have ever questioned whether you are truly an introvert or an extrovert, or if you have felt like you're a mix of both, this video is for you. By the end, you will have a completely new perspective on personality, one that goes beyond the simplistic labels we often use. Let's dive into Carl Jung's fascinating theory and uncover the truth about who you really are. In the early 20th century, Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung introduced an idea so profound that it reshaped the way we understand human personality. He proposed that all people fall into two primary psychological orientations, introversion and extraversion. At first glance, these concepts seem straightforward. We have all heard them before. Introverts are the quiet, reserved thinkers, while extroverts are the social, outgoing talkers. But Jung's perspective was far more complex than these simple stereotypes. He was not just talking about how people behave in social situations. He was talking about something much deeper. The way we direct our mental energy, the very core of our psychological functioning. The two energies of the mind. Jung believed that people don't just differ in their level of sociability. They differ in how they interact with the world around them, how they recharge, and where their focus naturally lies. Introverts direct their energy inward. Their inner world, their thoughts, emotions, and ideas feels more real and significant than the external world. They seek solitude, not because they dislike people, but because deep thinking and reflection fuel them. They process events internally, often replaying conversations in their mind and contemplating their emotions long after an event has passed. Extroverts, on the other hand, direct their energy outward. The external world, people, conversations, new experiences, feels more vivid and engaging to them. They are energized by action, social interaction, and external stimulation. They process events as they happen, often thinking out loud and responding to their environment in real time. But here's the shocking twist. Jung did not believe that anyone was purely an introvert or purely an extrovert. We tend to label ourselves and others in absolute terms. I'm an introvert. I don't like big social gatherings. She's an extrovert. She loves being the center of attention. But Jung's work revealed something far more profound. No one is entirely one or the other. Imagine two people at a party. One person is the life of the crowd, jumping from one group to another, laughing and telling stories. The other is sitting quietly in the corner, engaged in deep conversation with one or two close friends. It would be easy to say, that's an extrovert and that's an introvert. But what if I told you that the loud social butterfly might need hours of solitude the next day to recover? And what if the quiet one loves performing on stage in front of thousands? Jung argued that introversion and extraversion exist on a spectrum, and most people fall somewhere in between rather than being at the extreme ends. The human psyche, according to Jung, is not static. It's a constant push and pull between these two energies. If you have ever felt exhausted after too much social interaction, but also restless after too much solitude, you've experienced this internal struggle firsthand. Jung believed that as we mature, we start to integrate both introverted and extroverted tendencies into our personality. Someone who was a shy, bookish child might grow into a confident public speaker, but still value their alone time. A highly social teenager might later discover a love for deep introspection. We don't just stay introverts or extroverts our entire lives. We evolve, we adapt, we balance. And here's the most fascinating part. Jung's theory led to the realization that many people don't strongly identify as either introverts or extroverts. Instead, they exist in the middle ground. In the next section, we will explore this third category, one that modern psychology calls the ambivert, and why understanding it might change the way you see yourself forever. Imagine a straight line, stretching from one extreme to another. On one end, you have extreme introversion, people who avoid social interaction entirely, preferring deep solitude, sometimes to the point of isolation. On the other end, there's extreme extraversion, those who constantly seek social engagement, unable to function without external stimulation. But here's the truth. The vast majority of us exist somewhere in between. This is where the concept of the ambivert comes in. The ambivert. The best of both worlds? An ambivert is someone who has a balance of both introverted and extroverted traits. Unlike the classic assumption that people are either one or the other, ambiverts naturally shift between these tendencies depending on the situation. Carl Jung believed that while most people have a dominant tendency, either introversion or extraversion, they are not rigidly fixed in one category. Instead, their personality can adapt, moving fluidly along the spectrum. Think about it. Have you ever enjoyed social gatherings but later felt the need to be alone and recharge? Engaged in deep, meaningful conversations but also appreciated light, casual small talk? Felt drained after too much solitude, yet also overwhelmed by too much social interaction? If you answered yes to these, you might just be an ambivert. Ambiverts are uniquely adaptable. Because they have both introverted and extroverted tendencies, they can navigate different social environments with ease. They know when to listen and when to speak. They can work well alone, but also excel in group settings. They are comfortable in social situations, but also value their personal space. This flexibility gives them a unique advantage in fields like leadership, sales, public speaking, and creative work. Studies have even shown that ambiverts tend to outperform both introverts and extroverts in professions that require social interaction, because they naturally adjust their approach based on the person and situation. The easiest way to find out is by examining your energy levels and preferences. Ask yourself, do I prefer socializing in moderation rather than constantly or rarely? Do I enjoy alone time, but not to the extent that I feel isolated? Can I switch between being outgoing and reserved depending on the context? Do I feel drained by too much social interaction, but also restless after too much solitude? If you resonate with these statements, you likely have ambiverted tendencies. Jung's bigger message: you are not stuck in one box. Carl Jung's theory was not just about classifying people into categories. It was about understanding the complexity of the human mind. Many of us have been conditioned to think of ourselves in absolute terms. I'm an introvert, so I must avoid social situations. I'm an extrovert, so I must always be outgoing. But the truth is, personality is fluid. It changes with time, environment, and life experiences. Jung's work suggests that instead of rigidly labeling ourselves, we should embrace the dynamic nature of our psyche. This brings us to a deeper question. If we are not purely introverted or extroverted, what does that say about the way we develop as individuals? In the next section, we'll explore Jung's concept of personality integration and why the ultimate goal is not to be an introvert or an extrovert, but to become a whole, balanced individual. Are you born an introvert or extrovert, or do you become one over time? It's a question that has fascinated psychologists for decades. Some argue that personality is primarily genetic, encoded in our DNA before we even take our first breath. Others believe that our environment, our upbringing, culture, and life experiences plays a far more significant role in shaping who we become. Carl Jung's perspective: it's both. Jung believed that while we may have an innate tendency toward introversion or extraversion, our environment has the power to shape, refine, and even override these natural inclinations. Think back to your childhood. Were you encouraged to be outspoken and social, or were you taught to be reserved and reflective? A child raised in a loud social environment, where family gatherings are frequent and conversations are lively, may develop extroverted tendencies, even if they were naturally inclined toward introversion. On the other hand, a child who grows up in a quiet, bookish home, where deep thinking and solitude are valued, may lean toward introversion, even if they had extroverted traits. Parents, teachers, and early social interactions reinforce behaviors. A naturally introverted child who is repeatedly praised for speaking up may learn to develop extroverted skills. Likewise, an extroverted child who is frequently told to calm down or be quiet may suppress their natural expressiveness. Beyond the home, society itself has expectations about personality. In Western cultures, extraversion is often encouraged. Schools reward participation. Workplaces favor outgoing personalities. And networking is seen as essential for success. In this environment, introverts may feel pressured to act more extroverted, sometimes at the cost of their natural comfort zone. Meanwhile, in many Eastern cultures, traits like introspection, humility, and quiet reflection are more valued. Extroverts in these societies may feel pressure to tone down their expressiveness to fit cultural norms. Jung emphasized that true self-awareness comes from recognizing how these external forces shape our internal world. Even as adults, our personality continues to shift based on our experiences. Trauma or hardship can push someone toward introversion, making them more cautious and reflective. Success in social situations can encourage an introvert to become more comfortable with extraversion. Relationships can influence personality. An introvert in a relationship with an extrovert might develop more social confidence, while an extrovert who spends time with a deep thinker might become more introspective. This fluidity is what makes personality so fascinating. We are not static beings, we evolve. Nature versus nurture. The balance. Jung's perspective reminds us that we are not just born a certain way. We are shaped by our environment, and we also have the power to reshape ourselves. So, if you have ever felt like your personality is different in certain situations or has changed over time, that's normal. It's a reflection of both your natural tendencies and the impact of your environment. The real question is, are you living in alignment with your true self, or are you simply adapting to expectations? In the next section, we will explore Jung's concept of personality integration, how embracing both introverted and extroverted traits can lead to a more balanced, fulfilled life. When it comes to personality, we love putting people into neat little boxes. You are an introvert, so you must be shy. You are an extrovert, so you must be outgoing and confident. But Carl Jung's work reveals that personality is far more complex than these simple labels. Let's bust some of the biggest myths about introverts and extroverts. Myth number 1. Introverts are shy, extroverts are outgoing. Truth. Introversion has nothing to do with shyness. Many people assume that being an introvert means being socially awkward or afraid to speak up. But introversion is not about a lack of confidence. It's about how a person recharges their energy. An introvert might love public speaking, but need alone time afterward to recover. An extrovert might be outgoing, but still experience social anxiety in certain situations. Shyness is a fear-based behavior. It's about nervousness in social situations. Introversion, on the other hand, is a preference for solitude and deep thought. You can be a confident introvert who enjoys meaningful conversations, just as you can be an extrovert who feels insecure in new social settings. Myth number 2. Extroverts are always happy. Introverts are always serious. Truth. Both personality types experience the full range of emotions. There's a common belief that extroverts are eternally upbeat and energetic, while introverts are deep, brooding, and overly serious. But in reality, extroverts can struggle with loneliness, anxiety, or burnout, especially if they depend too much on external validation. Introverts can have moments of high energy, excitement, and even spontaneous social engagement. Emotions are not tied to personality type. Everyone experiences highs and lows, regardless of where they fall on the spectrum. Myth number 3. You cannot change your personality. While your core tendencies remain stable, you can adapt and develop new skills. Many people believe that their personality is fixed from birth, that if you are an introvert, you will always avoid social situations, or if you are an extrovert, you will always crave excitement. But psychology suggests otherwise. Carl Jung believed that true personal growth comes from integrating both introverted and extroverted traits. This means an introvert can develop social confidence and learn to enjoy networking or public speaking. An extrovert can cultivate the ability to be alone, practice mindfulness, and engage in deep introspection. Your core personality might lean one way, but your behavior, habits, and preferences can evolve based on experiences, environment, and personal growth. The problem with these myths is that they limit how we see ourselves. If you believe I'm an introvert, so I can't be a leader, or I'm an extrovert, so I can't enjoy solitude, you're restricting your potential. Jung's work encourages us to move beyond rigid labels and recognize the fluidity of personality. Instead of forcing yourself into a box, ask, what situations bring me energy and what drains me? How can I develop skills that balance my natural tendencies? Am I living according to my authentic self, or am I stuck in a stereotype? The key is not to define yourself as an introvert or extrovert, it's to understand yourself deeply and embrace your full range of traits. So, let's go back to the question we started with. Are you really an introvert or an extrovert? Or are you something in between? Carl Jung's theory challenges us to think beyond labels. It's not about fitting into a predefined category, it's about recognizing the fluidity of personality and how it shapes our experiences. Maybe you have always thought of yourself as an introvert, but now you realize you have moments of extraversion. Or perhaps you have identified as an extrovert, but notice how much you sometimes crave solitude. That's the beauty of Jung's insight. Your personality is not a fixed trait, but an evolving spectrum. Instead of asking, which category do I belong to? Ask yourself, what energizes me? What drains me? How can I use this knowledge to live a more fulfilling life? Understanding your own balance can help you. Create a lifestyle that aligns with your natural energy. Improve relationships by recognizing different personality needs. Choose a career that plays to your strengths. At the end of the day, it's not about being one or the other. It's about self-awareness. And the more you understand yourself, the better you can navigate the world around you. Are you an introvert, an extrovert, or an ambivert? Drop a comment below and let's discuss. If this video gave you a new perspective, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear this. And remember, your personality is not a limitation. It's a tool. The better you understand it, the better you can shape your life. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.